Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Stop and Smell the Roses, and I'm going to be sipping on some sweet orange tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, Mars black, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, green oxide, deep yellow, and fire red. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 9 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 3 round synthetic brush, and I'll refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up too if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and pencil and all that good stuff. That's in there for you. And there's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are blue, brown, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a nice soft sky blue color. I'm going to start the sky with that blue up top, and then I'm going to get it to go lighter and lighter as it comes down towards my horizon line. I'm going to bring mine down, I would say almost about 3/4 of the way down my canvas, and I'll show you how to kind of mark that off. But first I'm going to pre-mix myself my sky blue color. So I've already mixed a little bit so you can see where I'm headed, and I got to that by using my blue with a little bit of brown and a little bit of white. And then I just start kind of mixing them together. You can really go for any shade of blue that is appealing to your visual preference. What I'm basically doing is just taking the vibrancy of that cobalt blue out by adding a little bit of brown and a little bit of white to it. And then once you've got yourself in a pretty color that is appealing to you, I'm just going to pick up some of that blue and I'm going to start up at the top of my canvas using a left to right type of crisscross motion to get the paint on there. Once I've started that process, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up white with my dirty brush. So I've got my sky blue on my brush, and now I'm picking up some white along with it. And then what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to create a natural gradient as I come down my sky. And I like to, as I'm doing this, kind of go back up into the previous section so they look like they're nice and blended together. At some point you can mark yourself to give you a kind of a stopping point. So if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, you go about halfway between there and the bottom, and just give yourself a little visual marker. This will prevent you from going too, and then I'm using my brush as a measuring tool to do it on the other side. This will prevent you from going too far down the canvas. You'll have that visual barrier or stopping point. So as you come down the canvas, you can just kind of keep your eye on those 2 markers, and that, for me, I know when I get going painting, I just really get excited and I just kind of keep wanting to paint and paint and paint, and I tend to not pay as much attention to my original plan if I don't have these you know, these visual guides to go by. So when I think of what I want to do, if I have the opportunity to give myself some markers or some kind of other, you know, visual identification to keep me in check, I will tend to do that, because again, my head just kind of goes in all kinds of excited places when I'm painting, and I tend to stray from the task at hand sometimes. So I just kind of keep picking up my white paint as I'm coming down towards my horizon. Yours might be all the way white at this point. Yours might be a nice pretty light blue. Wherever it heads and whatever is visually appealing to you is totally fine. I'm making mine a nice loose background on this sky, so maybe it looks like there's some clouds floating by. You could have yours very smooth and have it a really just soft gradient, or you can have lots of clouds, whatever again works for you. This is just a beautiful summer day with a blue sky, so have fun with fiddling with that and making it into whatever is appealing to you. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your sky all nice and done, play with it as much as you want, and then you can wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the ground. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are brown, green, yellow, and white. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm applying it with a dotting or stippling technique. I'm going to have the bottom portion a little bit darker, and I'm going to get it to go lighter as it goes up the ground. So I'm going to load my brush with green and brown paint, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be applying it with this dotting type of technique, and this dotting type of technique will provide some good texture in that grass, so it'll make it look nice and natural as we go through the process. So I just reloaded my brush with a little bit more green and brown just to get myself all the way over to this edge in through here. And then what I'm going to do as I go up my grass is I'm going to be, without washing my brush, I'm picking up green plus a little bit of yellow. So I have green plus a little bit of yellow on my brush. And as I do this next kind of light or lighter area, I'm going to overlap it back into my dark area. So that way it looks like a nice gradual type of transition from the dark grass at the bottom of my canvas to the light grass at the top of my canvas. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up yellow and white without washing my brush. So this way I have a very light color on the edge of the grass as it's leading up towards the horizon line. And I'm going to have this top portion where it meets my sky nice and kind of uneven, so it looks nice and natural. And again, you can see that there is, in essence, some green or dirtiness coming off of my brush because I didn't wash it. And when I do these type of steps, I don't like to wash my brush because I want all of these colors to really start talking to one another and make it look like they live together and they, you know, are definitely part of the same entity, but with varying tones and shades and all that good stuff. Right now, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up some white so I can get this center area the lightest. So again, a dirty brush, white paint on my brush, and this is going to give me this nice bright sunshine type of look at the edge of my grass as it's meeting that horizon line. And then you can just kind of keep fiddling with it as much as you want to. I am going to be utilizing my pencil for the next step. So once you've got this step done, you can put your large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is drawing an outline for our rose buds as well as our chipmunk. I'm going to be using my pencil. I do want to forewarn you though that before you start the step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. It's easier to draw on dry paint than it is on wet paint. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be doing the chipmunk first because the head is going to be kind of inside one of the flowers, or the nose of it's going to be inside one of the flowers. So I want to do that first so then I can build my flower around the chipmunk. I'm going to start with a circle for the shape of my chipmunk's head, and then we'll just build basic shapes around that. We're not going to be going for any fine-tuned detail. We're just really going for a nice simple outline that we'll be able to color in during the painting process. So I'm going to have the head of or the start of my chipmunk right about in through here. The circle will represent the head and part of the body as well. It's just going to give us a really great place to start. So if you find about center from left to right, and maybe come over to the left just a little bit of it. So I'm going to go top to bottom, center, left to right, center. So somewhere in this vicinity, I'm going to go left of that about 1/2 of an inch, make myself a little bit of a marker. Then I'm going to come to the left of that. I would say about 3.5 inches or so. That's going to be about the width of my circle. And then I'm going to come down about 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and do the same thing at the top. So that gives me the top, the bottom, and the two sides. I might have these a little bit high, but somewhere in that vicinity will work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my 4 markers with a circle. The circle does not have to be a perfect circle, just something that can really give you a good starting point for the shape of your animal. And again, doesn't have to be a perfect circle. You can see I'm just kind of sketching mine on here. As long as it's not too much longer than it is wide, you'll be totally fine. And then once I have that on there, I'm going to draw a shape for the body. So I'm going to come, if this is the bottom of my circle, I am coming all the way over to the left and maybe up just a bit. So somewhere in through here. I want this to naturally look like it's coming from this back side of the body. I give it a little bit of a curve in and then back out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to the bottom of my canvas. I'm going to show you a marker first so you have a place to go to. So I'm going to come in from the bottom left of my canvas about 2.5 to 3 inches. I might pull out a white pencil in a minute just so you can see, but we're going to go from here to here. Yeah, I'm going to use a white pencil so you can see as viewers. So I'm going to go right from here. We'll switch from pencil to white pencil. So in through here, and I'm going to give it a big curve. This is going to be like where the back of the little guy is going to be. So hopefully you can see both of these marks just so you can get a good idea of where that is. And then on the right side, I'm going to do something similar. It's going to kind of come in this way, following kind of the outline here, and then we'll bump it out a little bit for that belly. So somewhere right about here, similar type of area that I started on the left side. I'm going to bring it down in a similar curve to this, and then bring it back in towards the left. And then switching my pencil so you can see it, I'm going to bring it down in this vicinity in through here. So it just kicks out a little bit for maybe that little belly of the chipmunk, something like that. And then the head, we're just going to add a couple of bumps. I'm going to put a couple of ears on this back side. I'm going to have him kind of tipping his head a little bit, so I'm going to drop the ears down a little bit lower than they would be if his head was straight up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a bump in through here. This is going to be the ear that's on our side of the chipmunk, and then a little bit of a bump in through here. That'll be the ear on the other side. Then I need to give him a little bit of a bump for a nose. So something like this is just going to give me just the essence of where that nose is going to be. And then he's going to have his arm like up into the flower. So I'm going to put a couple of little finger bumps in through here as well. So that'll be the nose. These will be a couple of finger bumps, and they'll look much better once we add all of the detail. But this will get us started. Then I'm going to put the big flower that he's sniffing right in this vicinity. So I want this to be really, really large. So I'm going to go from the right of this, I would say about another 3 or 4 inches. Let's see if this is going to be maybe almost as wide as his head. So somewhere in through here is going to be about as far out as I put it. I'm going to have a big round bottom to my flower, and then it's going to kind of come in where the petals in through here. So I'm going to give myself a couple of barriers where the outside of the petals are going to be. So right below this hand here, I'm going to put a little bit of a marker, and then about halfway up the head, I'm going to put another marker in through here. So this is where it's all, I'm going to have some petals coming out here, and it'll go into the bottom part of the flower. I'm going to start here. I'm going to come up with a big rounded edge to it, something like this, quite a bit ahead above the head itself. And then I'm just going to kind of bring it back down towards that head, somewhere in through here. And then I'm going to give myself a couple of edges to petals. So these will be the exterior petals that we'll see when we're building that flower, and then a little bump in through here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to bring this in a curved line towards the animal in through there, and then I'm just going to bump out a couple of little ripply type of edges, curved edges that'll represent petals later. So all I'm going to do for that one. Then I'm going to have two more flower buds off into this left-hand side. These can really be any shape or any size you want. They're going to be kind of in the shape of a teardrop. So I'm going to start one of them up in through here, and then I'm just going to bring it down in this big kind of curved line down in through here, and then just make it point up at the top, something like that. And then I'll have another one starting up pretty close to that one, and then just bring it down in a teardrop. You can have as many of these as you want, and you can have them in whatever kind of size that you want, because as they're growing, they can certainly be in lots of different sizes. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. You can fiddle with it as much as you want. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step, so you can put your pencil away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the base coat for our chipmunk and our flowers. I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using brown and red. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting my chipmunk brown and my roses red. So I'm using my medium brush. I'm not going to be doing any special brush stroke because I know that this is going to be just the base coat for my animal. I am going to bring it right to the edges. These chipmunks tend to have pretty short fur, so you don't need to worry about those edges being, too smooth, but I wouldn't necessarily bring the paint stroke out too far to make them look too fluffy. So I am giving like a soft edge to the fur or to the body, but I'm not necessarily pulling out lots of individual fur strands, so to speak. You may, if you're using a thin-bodied paint like I am, you may still detect the pencil marks underneath. That's okay because we have many more steps to go on this little guy, so if you can still see your pencil mark underneath, that's fine. We're just really trying to get the main area or the entire animal to have a base coat that's going to help us through the fur making process and all of the other little details that we're going to be putting on them. And brown is a very neutral color for this type of animal. All of the fur carries that nice warm brown type of tone, so we're just utilizing it for the entire animal for a nice easy way to apply the paint and to layer the different aspects of the fur pattern that it has. As you come down into the darker region down below, you'll probably notice that your brown is going to take on a little bit darker of a shade of brown, because if it is on the translucent side, it's going to start to see or show the colors that are underneath it. So as you get into the darker grass, you'll probably notice that your brown is a little bit darker, and again, that's quite all right because we're going to have lots of layers on top of it to disguise that. But my main purpose for telling you that is if you can see your background through it, it's all right. We've got lots of additional stuff to do. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to go in for the base coat of my flowers. So again, I'm just going to be using a single color. So I'm just going to be using my red paint, and again, you may find that yours is translucent, which means it's going to be see-through, and if you can see your pencil edges, that's quite, your pencil underneath your paint, that's quite all right, because we've got lots of other things to do. I am going to go kind of smooth around the edges, whereas when I was doing the little chipmunk, I was okay with it being a little bit more fluffy looking around the edges, but my rose petals, I would like that to be a little bit smoother. So I'm going to go a little bit slower as I'm reaching my edges. If it doesn't turn out perfectly smooth, that's okay. Because we've got the other steps to attend to. And if your petals grow a little bit like mine just did, don't worry about it, because the petals can be all different sizes and shapes. But when you get right up to the chipmunk's face and hand here, you can just scoot that little red right in between those fingers. Again, we're gonna have a fun little edge here anyway, so that we'll be able to make any little design elements that we need to disguise that so it looks nice and realistic. If it doesn't look great right now, we'll add those details later. And then I'm just going to go right up to his head. Sorry if my hand's getting in the way. And just go right up to the chipmunk himself in through here, and then just kind of paint out any really thick spots that I might have had in that paint. And then I'll go ahead and do these two guys over here. So nothing special, again, just kind of getting my paint to go all the way to those edges. And if you feel like you want to reshape it at this point, you certainly can. And again, it'll probably look a little bit darker as it's on top of that dark blue. And that's just because the paint tends to see the color that is underneath it. So especially red. Red tends to be one of the more translucent kind of colors, so it will take on the color that's behind it, which is a great thing to use to your advantage when making different tones and different shades of a color. So I'm just going to finish up this little part here, and then we are going to be utilizing our, let's see, what are we going to do for the next step? Let's use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, I'm going to wash and dry my medium brush. And let me just get this last little piece here. And I will get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish the flowers. We'll save the stems and the leaves for later, but we're gonna finish the flower part on this step. I'm gonna be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are red, white, and black. I might use a little bit of yellow and or brown, and if I do, I will call them out as I use them. So what I'm gonna first do is I'm going to be pre-mixing myself a light red color. So I'm gonna take my red, and I'm going to add a touch of white to it. It's in essence kind of a really dark reddish pink, but we'll call it light red because I'm just taking my red and making it lighter with a touch of white. I don't want it to go light into the pink region, so this is how I'm going to accomplish it. So what I'm going to do with this light red color is I'm going to, in essence, kind of give myself a roadmap for the petals on this larger flower in through here. These two are going to be pretty simple because we're not going to really see the edges of the petals. We're just going to do a little highlight and shadow to give them form, but this one we're going to have a little bit more detail on it so our chipmunk has a place to go and sniff into. So we've already kind of started with some petal edges kind of coming out in through here. So what I'm going to in essence do is kind of take that thought process and finish it throughout the rest of the flower. So I'm going to start down at what would be the bottom of the flower base, and I'm just going to kind of draw myself a little bit of a line that's going to take me to this corner in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a full edge to the petal by just kind of taking this and giving myself a little bit of a round or a kind of a curved line in through here. So this light part that I'm painting right now is in essence the part of the petal that has flipped out or is turning out of the interior of the flower. So something like that. And that's going to give me a nice little roadmap on that side. On this side in through here, I'm going to start a little bit to the right of this one. I would say maybe somewhere in through here. And I'm headed to this area right in through here. So I'm going to take my light line and bring it all the way to here. And then I want to do the rest of the edge of that petal that is kind of emerging or kind of laying outward from the base of the flower. So something like this. Then I'm going to reload my brush with that light red color, and I'm going to give myself a couple of edges of the interior petals. So these are fun. You don't need to do much to them. Just kind of designate where they are. I'm going to just kind of give myself a couple of little rippled edges, something like this. That'll tell me that there is in fact some additional edges to the petals. This will be one. Maybe we'll have another one that kind of sneaks in through here. So when I look at a rose when it's open, I feel like there's almost like a spiral of petals in this area here. So I'm just going to give myself the edges of a couple of petals that would be kind of coming out in this direction. So something like this. And I've left myself a little bit of darkness between them so we can manipulate that with highlights and shadows and stuff. And then maybe I'll do another little one kind of over on the edge on this bottom side, something like this. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to utilize that light pink. I'm going to let this dry for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and get these two highlights and shadows taken care of. So I have the light red on my brush, and I'm going to put a highlighted area up in this top left-hand edge of the flower, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So again, I just have that light red on my brush. I'm giving myself a highlighted area. I'll amp it up in a minute with a bit of white, but this is just going to kind of start that progression from the light area into the dark area. What I'm going to do now is I'm picking up some red without washing my brush, and I'm working my way down towards the base or the bottom of this bud. Just making sure I've got good coverage on the whole flower, making sure that this highlight area kind of works its way into the darker region. I just reloaded my brush with just red paint, making sure I have good coverage. In a second, I'm going to pick up a touch of black paint. So right now I picked up more red and a teeny tiny bit of black paint. This is going to give me a shadowy area on the bottom right hand side of these two buds in through here. So black and red. I'm going to wipe my brush off to make sure I don't have too much black on my brush. I just picked up a bit more red, and I'm going to just get this to blend up into the flower. So this way it looks like the light is coming from up above, because we've got this highlighted area, which again I will amp up in just a minute, but it allows us to give this shadowy area down at the bottom as well, to give us form and shape to this particular object. So I'm going to wash my brush right now. I'm going to get this lighter area up at the top to happen. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm putting a touch of white paint on my brush, and I'm going to make these highlighted areas even brighter. So white paint, I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel, and then I'm going to rub it out. And if I feel the need to pick up some of that light red to get it to blend, I will. But if you can get it without having to pick up that paint again, then that's awesome. And then I just kind of lightly rub it out. My pressure on my brush is a lot less as I get towards the edges. So I just am lightly kind of rubbing it in towards that wet paint. And then if you need to add any more, feel free to do so. I'm going to work my way back towards this one. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm starting with my shadow areas, which is black and red. So I'm putting red with a teeny tiny bit of black on my brush. This is a step where less is more. You do not need a lot of paint on your brush in order to accomplish this. What I'm in essence going to be doing is putting a little shadow in the area that I feel is tucked underneath those petals, and then I'll bring it out and make it brighter as it's coming out towards the viewer. So in through here, I'm going to put a little bit of red and black. Then I'm picking up more red on my brush in order to get it to blend out. I want to get some of this darkness in this little crease in through here. So I've got red and black on my brush. And again, you don't need a lot of paint. I hardly have any paint on my brush right now, and I'm just getting it to blend out and work its way into the neighboring paint. If you feel like you did too much, you can keep adding the red paint to your brush, and that'll help to not necessarily dilute the black, but help to, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat, help to get it to blend in with the rest. So again, just a little bit of red and black. I'm going in between these little petals so I can see the difference between them, and I'm telling the viewer that there's little shadows in between these. So I'm not going on that light red, but I'm going in between those light red areas, which is where the shadows would be lurking on this particular flower. And then I'm just going to make sure that I get it to blend in. I'm going to put a tiny bit on this bottom portion to mimic what's happening to the other flowers. So this is a little bit of black and red on this bottom part of the flower. And then once I've got this done, I'm going to just pop in a couple of real bright highlights on the tips of those, on the tips of the petals. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush just like I did to this guy here. And I'm going to start with some white paint on my brush. And I'm gonna put a good one in through here. We didn't put the light red here, but we'll be able to get ourselves a nice highlight in through there. And then I'm gonna put some bright highlights on some of these little petals that are coming out in through here. And then I'm picking up some of that light red because I know that I want this to blend in. So I picked up a little bit of light red in order to get it to blend out into the neighboring area, like this. So I'm just making those highlights right on the tippy tips of those little petals and then getting it to blend out with a little bit of that light red. So if you're going through this process and your paint dries faster than mine, just go with one section at a time. You don't have to knock them all out as quickly as I am. You can certainly go approach it in a much slower fashion, because your paint may dry at a different speed than mine. But if you can kind of travel from one petal to the next, great. If not, no worries. You travel at whatever pace your paint allows you to. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit more white to get the little edge of this one. And I might put a little shadow back there too. But what I would do at this point, once you've got the makings of everywhere that you wanted, what I would do is step back from it, let it dry for a minute, step back, see if you got all of your little edges to pop out as much as you wanted to. And if not, you just kind of come back. Like right now I'm putting a tiny bit of red and black on my brush because I think I want a little bit more of a shadow on the underside of this petal in through here. So just a teeny tiny bit in through there, and just wipe my brush off, picked up a little bit more red to get it to blend in or out, however you want to refer to that as. And then just keep fiddling with it until you've got as much dimension in this beautiful flower as you want. The edges are going to be hidden with the leaves and the stems, so don't worry about getting those too perfect. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting in the dark areas on the chipmunk. So I'm going to be using my small brush. I call it the dark areas. I was going to call it shadows, but there's dark markings on little chipmunks. Like they have that cute little stripe down their back, and a couple little markings on their eyes. So this is kind of inclusive of shadows and dark patterns on their fur. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to primarily use black and brown, but if I need to use any other colors, I'll let you know. So I'm going to utilize this step to kind of designate where my arm is going to go. I'll put little shadows underneath my fingers, shadows in the nose, and we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff with dark colors. But the trick here is you never need a lot of paint on your brush. You can even at times use black paint with a little bit of water or liquid medium in order to get it to have little translucency to it so you can see some of the brown underneath. But just know, if you do go too much, don't worry, we can add some fur on top of it to make it less of a dark color. So I'm going to start with black and a touch of brown on my brush, and just a little bit. Again, I don't need a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first make myself my couple of stripes down the back. So I know that I want my stripe to really start kind of just below my ears by maybe about an inch or so. And then I'm going to have kind of two stripes. I'll have one of them which is going to be really close to the edge of my, I'm going to put more black on my brush, really close to the edge of my body. I'm using a very light kind of sketcherly type of brush stroke in order to get this line in here instead of just having a real solid line. I want it to look like it is fur, like it's translating as it's working with the colors that are next to it. We're going to be putting lighter colors in between, but this is really just kind of telling the story of where that dark stripe is going. So I keep reloading my brush with black. You can also, like I said, use a little bit of white. The stripe, I did a singular one kind of in through here, and then I would say probably right about here is where I'm going to be putting the second stripe to kind of emerge from the back somewhere in through here, and this one is going to go I would say about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch to the right of the first one. And right now I'm just using black on my brush, and again I'm using this real sketcherly type of brush stroke, and I'm bringing it all the way down to the bottom of my canvas. The bottom of our chipmunk is going to be hidden by long wild grass, so if the bottom of yours doesn't look fantastic, don't worry about that. We'll be able to hide that. So again, just going to reload my brush with black, and this time I'm picking up a little bit of brown. I want to underline or get the bottom part of the arm to appear. So if this is where my hand is going to go, I'm coming down about 1 inch, 1.5 inches from that. This is going to kind of represent the forearm, and I'm going to give myself this diagonal type of marking towards where I'm going to call the elbow. So I'm going to put my elbow right in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly just get this dark area to merge into the, we'll call it the top of the belly area, the chest area. So something like this. And I'm really just kind of wiggling my brush up and down so it gradually works its way into that brown that we had put down initially. So something like that. I'm going to pick up more brown at this time to kind of, well, actually, I guess I need a little bit of black too. So I can get the bottom area of the back of the arm. So I just came up at a kind of a diagonal type of way. And I don't need as much in here, just the idea of a little shadow under there so I can see the edge of that. Now what I'm going to do with this color is I'm going to give my arm the outline of my arm and the shadow where it kind of hits the face. So here's my little fingers in through here. I've got black and brown on my brush, maybe a little bit more so we can actually paint, so we can actually make marks on the canvas. So just a little bit on my brush right now, giving myself the idea of the hand. I'm going to bring this down in this direction in through here. I don't want it to dip down too far here, so because the upper part of their arm is pretty bulky, so I'm just kind of coming down about here, and then I'm going to give myself this curved line in through here. So this will be like the shoulder type of area to it, and then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to blend this shadow into the cheek area of the little chipmunk. And I reloaded my brush with a little bit of black and brown. I'm gonna give them little shadows between these fingers in through here. I'm not quite sure how many fingers a little chipmunk has, but I'm gonna give him 4. Don't know if that's the right number, but we'll give him 4 little fingers in through there, maybe a little bit of a shadowy area underneath here, something like that. Yeah, that's cute. So I'm adding a tiny bit of water to my brush. I want this nose to look like it's in the shadows, so I just added a little bit of water to my brush so I can get this to look like it's in the shadows but not go totally black on me. So that will help me to do that, so like it's tucked right into that little rose in through there. So now I'm going to reload my brush with a little bit more black so I can put the facial markings on. So I'm going to have the eye is going to be closed. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself the dark markings for the face. So again, I just have a little bit of black on my brush. I'm going to put a little bit more water on my brush just so I can have this sketcherly type of area that I'm adding on in through here. So something like this kind of goes towards the nose and back towards that shoulder region, and just real soft edges to it. I'm going to do the same thing above where the eye goes in this little, think of it almost like a little eyebrow type of area up in through here. And then I'm going to give myself where the eye is closing, which will be somewhere in between here, like this, and then I'm going to give myself kind of a downward type of arcing motion to look like it's like that's the eyelid that's kind of closed. We'll put highlights and more information on it later, but this is again just going to kind of get it started. I need a little darkness inside my ears, so again just black and brown are on my brush. My ear comes into the head a little bit, so I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow inside that ear. I just added a bit more water to my brush so I can get this to kind of blend in with the neighboring areas, maybe a little bit of a shadow underneath that ear, and then just get it to blend up. Maybe, I think they might have little dark marks on the top of their ears too. I just added a bit more black onto my brush, give them a little bit of darkness up at the top of the ear, something like that. And then this one is we're seeing the back side of this ear here, so I'm just adding a little bit of darkness to make that make sense. And let's see what else. I'm going to add a little bit of darkness at the top of the head because some of these cute chipmunks have black on the top of their head, so I'm just adding a bit of black up in through there. And then I would just kind of step back and see if it needs to be fiddled with at all. We are going to be adding all of the additional colors and stuff onto it. After that, we'll add all of our reds and light colors and things of that nature. But I think I've got the majority of the shadows. Maybe I'll put a little nostril on here, maybe just a little kind of curved black line in through here, like we're seeing the little nose in through there. And then we'll use this same, actually let's move to our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, we'll put the small brush away, we'll take out our medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting our stems and our leaves for our roses. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, green, and yellow, and white. Maybe even a little red too, but I'll let you know as I go. So I'm going to start with my stems, and I'm going to be using brown paint. So I'm going to have kind of one main stem, and it's going to split off into three. So I'm going to start with this center one in through here, and I'm just going to kind of give myself a really nice long stem. And you can make this kind of wide too. It doesn't have to be a skinny little, tiny stem. I mean, these are big roses, so they're going to need something pretty sturdy to hold them up. So don't be shy with the quantity or the width of the stem. So that'll be my main one. I'm going to have it branching off to here, but I want this one to look like it's kind of being pulled over by our cute chipmunk. So I'm going to have this kind of in through here, and then just kind of branching off somewhere in through here with this little bit of a curve like that. And we're going to put the leaves on in a minute, but this is just getting the stems going. And then this one maybe we'll have, I don't know, coming right in through here and then coming down in through this way. So something like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a base coat on. So this is like the base coat for the stems. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my brush with brown and green as the base coat for the leaves themselves. So these flowers are in the blossoming stage, so the leaves are kind of encapsulating the buds, and then this one, the leaves are kind of coming out the edges. So we'll tackle these guys first. I've got my green and brown on my brush. They are pointier at the top and they get a little bit wider as they meet the base in through here. So I'm going to start somewhere in through here and then just push my brush a little bit harder as it gets towards that base. And again, green and brown, they can disconnect as they are coming on the outside. So something like that. And then I'm just going to kind of push my brush a little bit harder as it's getting towards this base. And I want it to look like it kind of meets the base of that stem in a natural kind of way. So I curve it into it, and it might get a little bit larger as it goes through the process. So something like this. And they don't even have to touch the flower. But if you want them to touch the flower or look like they are covering up part of that flower, excellent. That'll make it look a little bit more natural, like it's going through its morphing stage. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this one over here. So again, just green and brown is where I'm starting with this. We'll add some more detail to it in a little bit, but starting it pointy and then just bringing it a little bit wider as it comes down towards here. And because I'm choosing to do this in a 2 kind of step process, if I can see through my paint right now, and because of the translucency of it, that's quite all right. It's just going to add to the information that I'm going to add in its second step. So just bringing this one down in through here. And if there's any area on your flower that you felt like you wanted to kind of disguise, you can certainly do it with these leaves that we're doing right now. And then this one here, I'm going to put a pretty big one coming out in this direction like this. And these just are long kind of pointy type of leaves. This one's going to come along the edge here and maybe poke out like this. And of course yours don't have to be exactly in the same spot that mine are. You could have yours in a much different formation. I'm going to have some of these kind of coming up my flower in this direction. And again, this is just the first little step to them. When I add the additional step, that'll make them look more realistic. And then I'm going to add a couple of leaves coming off of the stem itself. So the leaves down on the stem are a little bit different than the leaves on the flower buds themselves. These ones are kind of have a wider width to them, and they're more of a round type of floppiness. It's not, I have such technical terms sometimes. The round width to them or something like that. But I'm going to bring this so I had it a little bit wider. Again, I'm just using green and brown as my base coat. I'll have, and I'm not going to do too many of these, maybe just 3 or 4, something like that. But I'm making them wider than the ones up above. And then maybe I'll have another one maybe coming in through here. And then once I've got that, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put little highlights on my stem and on my leaves. So washing and drying my brush, I'm going to use maybe a little yellow. For my highlights on my stem, I think I'm going to use yellow, green, and white all on my brush at the same time. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get wild and crazy. I'm using a little bit of my red too, and brown. Just something lighter than brown will work. And multicolors, that makes it look more dramatic. So I'm just going to really kind of stripe in some little bits of light highlights throughout my stem. And I wanted to stay on the more brown side as opposed to green because I don't want it to steal the show from my leaves, which I'll be doing in a minute. So that's why I chose to kind of incorporate a little bit of the red, maybe a little bit of the yellow in it, so it gives those little bits of additional highlights. And you can even bring a little bit up towards this base, something like that, something like that. That just allows these pieces to start to connect to each other. I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm putting a tiny bit of black and brown paint on my brush so I can put a couple of little shadows on my stems themselves. So just a little bit of black and brown, maybe to indicate these little areas in between or on the side of one of them. So again, just adding these little tiny bits of dimension so it's not just one solid color. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the leaves. So my leaf highlight color is going to be predominantly yellow, green, and white. So just washing and drying my brush. So I have yellow, green, and white on my brush at the same time, about equal parts of each. And I'm really just going to kind of gently streak in some highlights like this. So I don't want to cover up all of the green that I did, but I definitely want to use this highlight color to make sure I have a good coverage on these leaves. So again, because I know that my paint is a little see-through, utilizing my highlight will help me to fill in or eliminate any of those little spots that might have had a bit too much translucency for my liking. Or I could certainly do just another coat of the base color, but I like incorporating these highlights to do the job for me. So again, green, yellow, and white. I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of a highlight on these guys in through here. I think I want a little bit more white on these to make them kind of pop out and give themselves a little bit more information to them. I'll add a tiny bit of a shadow on them as well in between some of these leaves. So I'm going to wash, and maybe this needs a little more green right here. And you can keep playing with these. You know, they don't have to be just one pass. You can certainly just keep fiddling with them until you get them into that color or value that you want. I'm going to wash and dry my brush and put a couple of little shadows in my leaves. So you can actually use green and black for your shadows on your leaves. So I just put green and black. I'm going to make sure I have some little shadows as some of these leaves touch my flower in through here. That's going to give that some nice dimension and make those look nice and 3D. I'm going to put a little bit of this, and again, I have green and black on my brush right now. This is going to help to make these pop right out and give them just a little bit more information. And let's see, where else do I want some? Maybe a little bit in through there, maybe a little bit underneath this petal or at the bottom. You can put little veins in these ones, so maybe green and black will help to give you some little veins going up your leaf, something like that, just again to add a little bit more information to it. And then fiddle with it all you want. We're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can just put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our chipmunk. So this is going to, in essence, be all the little highlights and the rest of the fur for our adorable little creature. So I'm going to be using my small brush. You might find that you want to use a larger brush to get more texture on the fur, but this is going to help me. I'll be able to just kind of control these little directions of the fur. It's a pretty small animal with lots of little pieces, so I'm going to utilize a smaller brush, but you could certainly feel free to do whatever you'd like. So these little chipmunks, they have like a rusty type of fur to them in certain areas, and like a golden yellow kind of color in other areas, and then brown in other areas, and black in other areas. So we're going to try and kind of build it from the dark to the light. And again, yours might not end up exactly as mine, and that's quite all right. We're just going for an adorable little outdoor rodent here who's stopped to smell the roses. So there's a light stripe on the back, which we'll account for in a little while, which is almost white. I'm going to put some lighter fur on its belly, on its hand, on its eye area, and maybe on the back of the neck. And then the rest of it, and maybe some little highlights on the ears. And then the rest of it is in essence going to be a combination of like tan and this rusty color that we're going to make and this light yellow color that we're going to make. So how I'm going to approach it, I will be using brown a lot because brown is my base color, and I'll be able to utilize that within the fur to make sure that I keep the dimension, because I don't want it to be a flat color. So if I'm going about adding like the rust color or the golden color and I need to add more depth to it, I might end up picking up some of that original brown as well. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make myself two colors. I'm going to make myself this rusty type of color and this golden type of color. So I've pre-mixed them so you can kind of see where I'm headed. So this is my rusty color that I'm going for. So how I got to that was I utilized red, and you don't need a lot of red, just a little bit. Red's very powerful. I picked up some yellow, a little bit of my brown, and you can use a touch of your white as well. And you just kind of spin it together. I'm looking for something that has a brownish tinge to it, but also has that kind of orange, rusty type of look to it. So it doesn't have to, yours doesn't have to be exactly as mine. It can be any kind of shade of this that is visually appealing to you. It will take on a little bit darker look once it's on top of that brown paint, which is the base color in through there. So that's about where I'm headed with this. Somewhere in this vicinity works for me. And then for my yellow color, I just washed and dried my brush. This is where I'm headed for this. So it's pretty similar to my deep yellow. What I did was I added a touch of white to it and an itty bitty bit of red. So what I in essence did was I took out that vibrant sunshine look to it and just made it more of like a nice golden type of yellow color that will look nice on top of the brown. And then we'll be using variations of our brown as we go through the process. So I just washed and dried my brush. I'm going to pick up some of that rust color and start to put in place where I want that to be the dominant color in certain areas, which is definitely going to be underneath this arm. So I've got a little bit of that rust color on my brush. And when I do fur, I like to move my brush in the direction that I feel that that fur would be falling in. So for me, this type of animal has pretty short fur, so I'm really just kind of pushing it down towards the bottom of the body. I want some of this color on this back side of the arm, and I know that this arm would be kind of up, and I want to add a little bit of curve to this color to tell the contour of this particular piece of the body. You can get this color to overlap in this dark area in through here, so that's going to make it look a little bit furrier and fluffier. So you can get that to overlap where we did that shadowy type of area. I'm going to utilize this color up in the face as well. So where I have these dark areas, I want to incorporate some of this rusty color around the edges of that. You'll be able to see the black right through that paint. So right now I'm just kind of rubbing it in the face. I don't really need this fur to look too long, so I'm just kind of getting this color to be represented up in the head. Maybe a little bit in through here. I hardly have any on my brush. I'm just kind of getting it to maybe add a little bit of a tinge or a little glow onto it. So that's looking pretty good to me. Maybe a touch more right in through here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not washing my brush, I'm picking up some of that yellow color and I'm going to put some of that down in the belly as well. So I've got some of that golden kind of yellowy color, and this is going to intermingle with that rust. So if you're going about this and it's not doing exactly what you want it to, just keep layering. You can keep, which I'm going to do too. So I've got this yellow on here. I actually am going to pick up some of that rust right now so they can intermingle nice and well. And I'm also now going to pick up some of my brown. So as I make my way down towards this bottom part of the belly area or the side of the body, I can get it to kind of merge down into the darkness and make sure it's got a little bit of that darker brown represented underneath it. So again, just kind of layering these little tiny pieces of fur, giving them a little bit of movement with these little curved lines that I'm making. And I'll be adding some additional colors over here as it gets towards that belly area, this area in through here. But right now, just kind of getting some of this golden color on. I'm going to do the same thing on the arm. So I have the light yellow that we've pre-mixed, and I'm going to put some on the top of this arm in these curved kind of lines, again just to tell the viewer what direction that fur is going in. And if you feel that your yellow is not the right shade of yellow, you can certainly add more brown to it or add more of the rust color to it. You can, make it into whatever color you would like it to be. It doesn't have to be exactly my color. I'm picking up some of that rust with the golden color right now just to get these two areas to really talk to each other and make sure that they blend well with one another. That's looking pretty good to me in through there. And again, you can certainly just kind of keep fiddling with it. As it dries, you might find that you want to add more to it or less to it, or bring back some of the brown or add little bits of white or whatever is working for you. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start moving up into the cheek and the arm So I want to, I have to kind of tackle some of these lighter areas too, but before I get to those areas, I just want to make sure that I have enough of the deeper tones that I'm looking for. So I do want to make sure that this bottom part of the arm is fully kind of finished. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown paint on my brush, on my dirty brush, and just make sure that I've got a lot of this area just colored in and making sure it's not too unpainted, I guess. It's not necessarily the best word I guess I'm looking for, but I'm kind of looking around and seeing what other dark areas do I want to tackle before I start getting into the light area. So I'm noticing right now that I want a little bit more of this rust color into the ear. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that rust and just rub it into the interior of my ear over on this side, and then maybe just a touch on the exterior over here. So again, just bringing that richness of that rust color to, I might have had a little bit of that yellow on my brush, but that's okay, to the ear itself. And now I think I'm going to start tackling my lighter areas. So my lighter areas are going to be my stripes. I'm going to have some in the front of the belly, the hand, and some on the face. So I'm going to go for a light tan color to start. I've pre-mixed it right here so you can kind of see where I'm headed to start. I got to that by utilizing white, get my hand out of the way here, and a little bit of brown, probably about equal parts of both. So this is going to be lighter than the brown that we have as the base, but it'll provide great dimension for the light areas that we want to do. So I have a tan color here on my brush. I'm going to start with the stripes on the back. So I've got just this light tan. I'm going down my stripes in this real messy way to get this color to intermingle with the black that is next to it. I'm going to do the same thing over on this front area in through here. So just this tan color is going to give me these little pieces of fur that are probably being seen, being illuminated by the day's light. I'll make them a little bit whiter or a little bit lighter in a minute, but this is just going to give me that little illuminating value to them. Same thing with my arm. I've got that tan on here, and I'm just thinking fur as I do this. I don't need it to be really detailed. I'm really just kind of adding the texture of the fur, making sure that I'm putting it in the direction that I feel it would fall. So on the arm, I feel that it would kind of fall in this curved type of manner, and then just kind of down the side and through here, maybe a little highlight down at the edge of the arm, in through here on that elbow portion. So just something like that to just make sure that everything is defined, and we've got a little bit of fur in through there. Ooh, I guess I'm putting a little extra highlight in through here too. And then I'm going into the face, so a little bit of that tan color. And again, just I want to pop, I'm using this lighter color to kind of pop out the areas that I feel need to be popped out. Like I feel like I need a little bit of a cheek in through here, so I'm going to just kind of add this little bit of a lighter tan color, even if it's on top of what we called the shadowy areas before. This will help to give the little animal form and shape. So I've got this tan color in through here. I'm going to put a little bit in those eye areas where I want the bottom portion of the eye to kind of be. I've got this little eyelid in through here that's going to have a bit of lightness to it as well. And just pulling out these little kind of fur brush strokes wherever I want there to be little pieces of fur represented, maybe a little bit of texture on top of the head, on top of that darker color that we had put initially. Right in through here, looks like it needs a little bit more paint as well. So I'm just going for that tan color right now in order to make sure that in essence kind of everywhere is painted. And then what we'll do is we're going to pop on a bright highlight for any additional areas that are going to need it, like the little part on the eye I know is going to need a little bit of a highlight. I think I'm going to put black and brown on my brush. Hold on, so I can put these little pieces of hair in through here. So I have black, brown, and my tan on my brush right now. I just noticed I wanted these little pieces of hair by the ear. So black, brown, and a little little bit of the tan in through there. That works. Now what I'm going to do, this is looking pretty cute to me. I'm going to be adding my lightest of my lights. So this is going to be, I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm using white plus my tan. And if I need to, I'll pick up a little bit of I'll do white plus my yellow. I'll do white plus my rust. And I'll call them out as I'm using, but this is going to be my brightest of my brights. And I don't need much. I'm just going to really kind of skirt down this, my white stripe with a little bit of white and my tan on my brush. I've got a little there, a little in through here, just itty bitty pieces of fur. Gonna transcend down there, maybe a little bit in through here, not much. As you go towards the lighter fur, you need less paint on your brush, less detail. This is really just intended to give the little bits of highlights at the edges of these areas, so we can really feel as if this little guy is outside on a beautiful day, a little bit on his paw in through here, maybe a touch more on here. I'm going in for my yellow, that golden color, plus a little bit of white, just to get this shoulder to pop out just a little bit more, and then maybe some little bits back here. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, giving myself little pieces of fur coming out, giving the direction of the fur. Using that tip of the brush is going to allow me to get these individual pieces that will tell the story of the direction of the fur. And then I'm gonna, if you need to, you can put a little bit of water on your brush at this point so you can get the little tiny skinnier pieces, maybe a little bit more of that rust and golden in this face in through here, just to illuminate it a little bit more so we can see the fullness of these cute little cheeks. Yeah, there we go. And in front or next to the darker region of that colored portion of the face. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit of white, go in for this little bright highlight of fur right above this eye in through here. Maybe he's got some little eyelashes that are kind of, you know, just draping over his cute closed eye. He's so cute. I wish that he would just like, I could just squeeze him. He's so cute. Anyways, maybe a couple of little highlights on the ears. And then this is just white on my brush right now, just kind of popping in some little highlights here and there to make sure that the sunshine is translating really well on here. And then again, this is the time where I would just kind of fiddle with it. I've got everything in place where I want it to be, and then I would just probably let it sit for a couple minutes and see if it's drying the way that I want, and if I need to add little bits of highlights or shadows here or there, I would do that. So I would recommend that you do that too. You know, get it into the place where you're pretty comfortable with it, and then let it dry for a minute, and then you just kind of keep coming back and fiddling with it until you've got it into the range that you want. Then we're going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your cute little critter all nice and highlighted and furred up, you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna be painting wild grass. I'm gonna be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, green, yellow, and white. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna build my way from the dark to the light. I want some wild grass just down at the bottom to hide, make it look like our chipmunk is nestled into the grass, and then I'm just gonna make it look nice and natural and kind of come up and flank the sides of the canvas. So I'm gonna start with green, brown, and black on my brush at the same time. I love using multiple colors on my brush because it gives it a nice natural look. I'm going to be taking my brush and just kind of flicking it in an upward curved type of fashion. Every time right now I go to reload my brush, I'm reloading it with green, black, and brown. I'm gonna have longer pieces of grass up the sides, and I like to make sure that I kind of come off the edge of my canvas, or come in from the edge of my canvas. That'll make it give you the appearance that we're kind of engulfed in this, as opposed to we've just, you know, drawn everything within the parameters of the canvas. So if you can come in from the outside. That'll make it look nice and natural. And again, green, brown, and black is what I'm currently using. I'll work my way towards the lighter tones in a minute, but this is going to give us those nice shadowy little pieces that are, you know, going to be, are going to happen in a display of wild grass. And of course, anything that you feel needs a little bit of disguising, you can put some grass in front of it. So this is one of those forgiving steps that we can utilize in all of our paintings, all of our outdoor paintings. We can put some kind of fun element into it that will help to, you know, make things right if they didn't go the way that we had totally planned. So once I've got that on, that's looking pretty good to me. Now I'm going to start building my way to the light. So I'm going to, my next time I pick up paint, I didn't wash my brush. I'm picking up green, yellow, and white. And then this is just going to kind of give me my little sunshine pieces. And if you can't see them on top of the background, just add more white to your brush. And I'm not doing too much. I really am just looking to give myself this bit of information for the viewer to understand that we're outside and we've got some untamed grass in the wild, and perhaps this little fun critter is in a meadow somewhere, and you know, nobody's mowed the grass in a while, so we're just gonna have fun and give ourselves some nice wild grass throughout here. And again, I'm not going too wild or, you know, too much with it, just little bits to complete the painting in essence, so I have it fully rendered and have all you know, as much information in it as I want. And then fiddle with that as much as you want, and then we're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can put your medium brush away. I just picked up some black, sorry. To fiddle with it, that means pick up whatever colors you want towards the end. And then I'm going to be using my small brush for the next step. So you can just get ready. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm using black paint. I'm going to sign mine in the bottom left-hand corner. You can certainly sign yours wherever you want. Oops, that's going to be a little bit too much paint. I typically sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly use your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be. It's your painting, you get to sign it however you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself an adorable, inspirational image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.